Hello and welcome to the Permaculture Vine Podcast live stream. This is episode 88, and today we have Graham and Travis with us. We're going to chat about becoming a permaculture installer or landscaper. Thanks for joining us, guys. Welcome.
Thanks for
thank
that.
you.
Just a quick round of intros, please. Graham first.
Yeah, you bet. So, permaculture designer, consultant, installer. Today I'm here representing my local installation business, Permaculture Adventures of Michigan. I've been doing this now for 3 years since becoming full-time in permaculture. So I'm about to go into my 4th summer season with some of my local customers here in Michigan. And I'm also the Chief Operations Officer for Permaculture Canada, which does all of my design work for my local customers now, and really happy to be here as always, Cormac. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Travis?
And I'm Travis Holzem. I am the former founder of Food Forest Abundance. And, after building that company and moving on from that company, I started Food Forest Design Minnesota and have been going on 5 years now. More of a installer. Have a lot more experience as an installer, and I'm a rookie designer, comparatively speaking to Graham here. He's my mentor. That's where I get a lot of my knowledge from when I run into problems. But anyway, and then I'm also starting a business called Food Forest Design Network, which is going to be doing things right in the permaculture industry with honesty, integrity, and permaculture principles. And so we're here to help you today, Cormac.
Yeah, so just as about a perspective for everybody else. So I've been a designer now, I think, going on 3 years. I've done about, I think, 22, 23 designs, and I've recently just taken on a local design, of which I'm going to be the installer. So this is going to be my first install. So apart from the work I've done on my own, so I was chatting to Graham and Travis for sort of help and sort of mentorship and just sort of cheats to guide me through it. And then we thought, well, why not have a podcast and we can share the knowledge for others as well. And so that's some of the theme of the podcast as well. So permaculture, careers and business. So it's from what I've seen, it's definitely something that I want to do. I sort of got weary of remote designs because it's I just wanted to get my hands in the dirt. I thought, right, well, I'll concentrate more on local work. So my first design setup, I've done, I think, 2 consults now with them, of my 3rd tomorrow. Just on plant selections with the outline of the design done. And it's definitely different than just designing it and sending it off. So, do you want to somebody want to start there? Just advice starting out, really, for myself or just anybody else, and making the transition from remote design towards in-person design and install. Graham, do you want to go first there?
Yeah, you betcha.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my experience, started out just being a remote designer, and then I was asked if I could do an installation because there was no installer in my area for Food Forest Abundance that I was working with at the time. And I thought I'd take it on because I've always done my own landscape installation work on all my own properties ever since, I worked on my parents' farm. And so there's a lot of skills that I thought that I had that I could, bring to bear in installation work. I needed the additional income, so it was really logical for me to progress into that. But my first one was on a design that I wasn't the designer. It was actually work that was done by Jan McCausland and Lindsay Brandon for one of my customers here in Michigan in Pinckney. And so, I had the different experience of looking at a design for the first time from the perspective of being an installer, and then starting to work out, okay, how am I going to wrap my head around it? So it was really somewhat of a challenge first, going out and meeting with the customer, walking their land, understanding it, and never having seen it before, and also seeing the design for the first time, after it had been completed and not having participated in the design process. So a little bit different from your current situation, Cormac. And I think probably the first part of advice that I could give to folks who are doing both design work and installation work is know your plants and put plants in your design that you know you can get hold of when you're ready to do the installation. As a permaculture designer, I would get really excited about putting lots of different and wonderful plants into a design, and then have some of my installers in other locations contact me and say, okay, where can I get hold of this? I mean, a plant just as simple as comfrey. There's not a lot of commercial nurseries producing that. You can't get it at local big box nurseries. You can't get it at most of the online nurseries. I've shipped some across the country and sold it to folks who needed it because it's not readily available, but it's a plant that's commonly used within designs and installation work for permaculture. So that's my first part of advice. Know your plants and put plants in your design that you know you can get hold of. So start doing some research first to understand where you can get your plants, what your local resources are, whether it's local or regional.
Thank you, Graham. Just on that comfrey note, there's Brian Alexovich, the Lots Project. He ships comfrey all over the US.
Yeah.
And he actually has a couple of people who actually grow it for him. And then you can buy it on his website and they fulfill the orders. Yeah.
I found probably 3 online retailers of comfrey. And one of them was called buycomfrey.com. And, a pretty simple website, but, that person, it's somewhat expensive as well. I mean, it's like $14, $15 for a little root segment. And, I've been shipping whole plants for 10, plus shipping. So, that's, I think, part of the challenge of being an installer is building that network of different suppliers for different plants and knowing where to source everything. So I've been buying stuff literally from all over the country for some of the stuff that's harder to get hold of. A gummy berry, for example, will sell out pretty quickly in any nursery that's got any stock available. And I've been buying mine from the West Coast of the US and shipping them over here. So, there's challenges like that, certain plants that we love to put in permaculture designs are not that readily available.
Yeah, definitely something to think of. I think I had one design here in Ireland. I basically based the design on what I could find. So, and not what I knew. So I just sourced it. Yep. Travis, do you want to go next, Travis? I think your first install was my design.
Yes, it was. So I did the exact opposite. I was installing designs that were done for me. Matter of fact, I've installed both of your designs. So, but coming back to the comfrey, I found it on Etsy of all places, and and they give you like 15 roots. So you get quite a bit. And I think it was only $15 for all that. But I found that's where the source I found for comfrey. But so I started out doing installs before I started doing designs because, I kind of didn't have a choice in the matter. We didn't have any installers in Minnesota, and I had designs that needed to be installed. And so that's how I started. And so I think I've done, between Food Forest Abundance and myself, I think I've gotten close to 30 designs in the ground now. So I learned as I went and actually learned how to become a designer through installing, and because I was actually doing everything in the design. So it's kind of backwards learning, I guess you could say. But then I had nobody to learn from like you. You're just starting out your install business. So I didn't know where to turn. I had to build it from nothing. So I had to figure out where to get my trees, my plants, and source everything, where to get my mulch, where to get my soils. And I found the best place to get your plants and trees locally is through Facebook Marketplace, because you meet all of the independent growers that have land and they grow. You'll find someone that grows apple trees, specifically, or just all types of fruit trees. And, I found a guy through Facebook Marketplace that provides 30 different types of trees that I will use in the design. So I got a one-stop shop, and I can go to him and not only make more money myself because I'm paying 100 times less than you're paying at a nursery, but I also pass that savings on to the steward. But finding local growers is your best bet. And, I have and that's same with mulch and soil. I found some local guys on actually Craigslist and Marketplace. And now I just call them. I don't even look anymore because I know I'm going to get the best soil around. They make their own soil. They screen it. And I mean, it's every time I put this soil into a design, it's nothing but success. When it comes off the truck, gets dumped, there's steam coming off of it, man. And it just smells like it's going to be amazing, And so everything, you just network locally and you'll find it. And Facebook Marketplace has been a gold mine. And then the best thing to do, or the least expensive, bare root. If you find bare root trees, because I found another grower that has every fruit tree imaginable, bare root, every berry bush, bare root. And the amount you're paying versus a nursery is, night and day. So you make more money yourself, but you're also charging less to your steward. So, some of these installs can get, to $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, depending on what's in them, and if you research what a tree costs, a nursery, sometimes $250, $350 to put a tree in the ground.
Yep.
And that's ridiculous in my book, So if you can get that cheaper somewhere else and charge half the price, you're still making money, but you're saving money for your steward. So that's just one thing as far as sourcing. And I would say find everything locally. If you have to get it at a nursery, find one that gives you a wholesale price. Otherwise you're paying full price.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually we're coming to the very end of the bare root season here.
Oh.
So I'm going to race against the clock now to get bare roots ordered. So I'm meeting the client tomorrow to finalize the plant list, and then I can get them ordered. So I think I'll get up with the skin of my teeth.
And I suggest if you have the space, order extras and just throw them in pots, so you have some for if you get another client, another install soon, you'll have some inventory on hand, with some of these bare roots.
Yeah, the bare, I don't really have, I don't have fruit trees here, but I have plenty of raspberries, canes there. I have bamboo trees I'm going to propagate. I have strawberries. I have herbs. So there is a lot that I can make as well. I take it that's not getting the balance between buying and starting your own at the start. Any advice there?
Yeah, I'll jump in there on that one because I've gone through that experience of trying to find ways to reduce the cost for my customers. When I first started out, I was buying from online nurseries. I was buying stuff that were potted plants, and by the time the shipping takes place, the loss and damage of plants in transit can be significant. So I was trying to find better ways to get planting materials and get them, less expensively than what I was doing to start with. So ultimately, I progressed towards, like Travis has said, buying bare root stock. In some cases, I've been buying seedling trees from the local county conservation district, from Arbor Day Foundation here in the United States is another good source of, smaller trees for those folks who are prepared to wait for them to grow, especially for things that might be a little bit more ornamental, like some of your spruce trees and evergreens, those kinds of things. And then I progressively moved towards, as I said, finding folks that are local, regional, and with a permaculture orientation towards their production. So, one of our common good friends is Katie Stout, who's up in New York State. New York State I consider to be regional for me. It's essentially the same climate zone when you get into upstate New York. And so a lot of the plants that are grown in that area are really quite suitable for use here in Michigan. And I asked Katie, what nurseries does she raid, whenever she's looking for stuff for her customers in that part of the world. And she gave me some really, really good tips for folks that I found that had permaculture nurseries. They're growing their own stuff, and it was much more inexpensive. I found a few in Tennessee in much the same fashion, by talking to other designers and finding where they buy their stuff from. And then, I lucked into this with Doug Crouch, who's, based in the Cincinnati area, which is really only 3.5, 4 hours drive away from me. And, bumped into him and found out that he had a nursery. And I'm like, oh, really? So went and visited him on the way back from a trip I made to Tennessee, stopped in and saw what he had available and, liked the approach that he was taking on how he was growing stuff. And, very quickly became a customer of his. There's several times I've driven halfway and met him with stock. Funny story. We did a transfer. We both had white vans. We parked in a parking lot and we were transferring trees backwards and forwards. It looked like a drug deal going down. It was funny. And so, I've done that kind of stuff because I also want to support, my other permaculturists, in their work, whether it is, their friends that have nurseries or whether it's their own nurseries. And so ultimately, Cormac, I'm now heading towards that myself, wanting to grow a lot of my own stuff. So I actually used a lot of Doug's trees in order to create the base stock for my own nursery. So I planted a lot of his apple trees out, some of his peach trees, because he's been working on developing a lot of his own root stocks and that kind of stuff as well, taking it to a new level of creating stuff that's acclimatized to our climate zone. And so, that's what I'm headed to next. I've got my own elderberries, I've got my own comfrey, I've got my own mulberries. There's a lot of stuff that I've purchased seed for. So one of our other common contacts is Scott Miller out in Kansas. I bought a whole bunch of chestnut seeds from him so I can plant, I have planted chestnut seeds, like 250 of them here in the fall, so that I can have those sprouted out and then grow them out in pots, etc. So now that I've got Julia Fouty hired here to work with me on my farm and in my install business, she's a wonderful person in terms of wanting to get a lot of propagation work done. So she wants to learn how to graft. She wants to do root cuttings, and she gets after it and helping me to put all these plants in the ground. So we purchased, it was 100 lavender plants of about 10 different varieties last year in summer. Put them into the ground, and we're using that now to create the stock from which we can propagate from for growing lavender. I was never able to get enough of that from my local nurseries. It's like if they had 10 plants in stock, I'd be buying all of them. I'd still need 20 or 30 more for some of my designs that I'd be installing. So I think that's my next big step. 2025, 2026 is building out my nursery stock. Gosh, I've got tons of pots, tons of mulch and compost and all the rest of it. Now it's just creating that plant inventory in order to create the stock that I need for my customers. And then the cost also comes down and the profitability goes up. So from a business perspective, it's the ultimate. I mean, there's probably not much anything that you can do that's more profitable than grow a plant from seed and turn it and grow it out into something that you can sell to a customer. So I'll use the simple example of lettuce, because we do a lot of vegetables and herbs installs as part of permaculture designs, to complement the perennials that we put in the ground. And if I was to buy a packet of lettuce seed for $5 for organic grown lettuce seed, heirloom varieties, 300 seeds to a pack, you put those into the ground and you've got like 1 2/3 pennies per seed, in cost. And that turns into a lettuce plant that you can sell for 50 cents, $1 or $2 or a 6-pack for $5, that kind of stuff, depending on, how you want to sell them. But for me, it's not necessarily the cost of the plants, but I actually make more money out of the labor putting them all into the ground, right? So I want to be able to grow more plants to sell to my customers, even if they're a very low cost that I offer them. And I've done this where I've sold plants for 20 cents and 30 cents a piece for vegetable seedlings, simply because I've also got the ability to supply the labor, which is where most of my profit margin is within my business.
Interesting point there about I never really considered annuals and perennials. So I sort of just assumed it was all perennials. Travis, how do you manage your annuals as well? Do you include sort of seed starts in your install?
Yeah, usually they're all starts. And I get them, I buy them from local growers. I never go to nurseries anymore unless I have to. There's a few nurseries that if you want I suggest when you're putting fruit trees in the ground to get a mature fruit tree, because you have the best results having a tree that might be 4 years old, 3-4 years old, and might be 10, 12 feet high, for an apple tree or a peach tree. And this nursery, I have great luck with them, and I usually have fruit on them the following spring. Put them in the ground in the fall, and usually the next season they're fruiting. Might not be a lot, but they're in fruit right away, versus putting a small 2 or 3 foot tree in the ground. You're going to wait 2 or 3 years, maybe more, before it starts fruiting. So that is one thing with fruit trees. Talk to your steward and, hey, do you want fruit right away, or do you have any problem waiting a couple of years? Because those things, they take the longest to fruit. So a more mature tree going in the ground gets you there faster. But as far as the rest, I have found so many local growers that, they live in the cities here, and their entire backyards are full of native plants and pollinators and herbs and everything I need. And, I might go spend $500 with the local grower, and, I'm getting $1,000 worth of plants, so it's just, I don't have the land yet to be able to have my own nursery, but that is in future plans to, like Graham is doing right now. Eventually I will get there. So my way is finding people that are already growing, and they're everywhere. And once they hear about what you do, they love you, and because you're helping them make money. You're supporting local growers, and to somebody who is living in the cities, growing a bunch of natives in their backyard, you go spend $200 or $300 with them. That's a lot of money for them, So it's just, just finding all of them. And then before you know it, you have a whole network that you use. And, you might get your black-eyed Susans and, echinaceas and stuff from one grower, and your sunflowers from another grower. And, they each specialize in something different, Some have everything, some, and it's just, you find them. And then before you know it, you have your whole network, and they're calling you, hey, do you need anything? And so that's just how I do it now. But eventually I will have a nursery that I will be able to provide all my own stock from, which that's the goal. And if I have that, then I have my own food forest too. So
yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind. So the problem with the fruit trees, I always tell the client or the steward that basically, yeah, I can give you a 2 or 3 year old bare rootstock. It'll take a couple of years, but here's a pile of berries, and they'll sort of balance that out because you get them the same year. And then, yeah, and then the local growers. So I'm going to a seed swap, planting seed swap of range. So in episode 87, we had Marjorie and Graham on, and one of the pieces that we talked about was having a plant and seed swap to meet your local community. So mine's is this Saturday. So I arranged that with a local repair cafe. They gave us the premises. So I'm hoping to meet some growers there. So I'll definitely get as many cards and as names as possible, and hopefully I meet plenty of growers there.
And if you have local farmers markets too, if you go to them, you can meet growers there because obviously they're selling all their fruits and vegetables at the farmers market, so they are growers too. So
Yeah.
it's just another angle, another place to look.
Yeah, and actually at the farmers markets, you'll find there's a lot of the growers who are producing, their farm produce also have plants for sale, especially things like tomatoes and pepper plants, eggplants, that kind of stuff. So, that is a good option again, for finding local growers, definitely.
So, where I'm at now is pricing the job out and getting that initial sort of finance down. Did you both create a spreadsheet and start it with a template, or how did you start out, Graham?
Yeah, there was a template that was provided to me when I first took on my first job, and I didn't particularly care for it, so I built my own. As an engineer, I've always been building spreadsheets ever since Excel was first available. When Lotus 123 was first available back in the day. So, putting together a spreadsheet was the easiest way for me to, work out the costs, put in the profit margins, calculate the total profit from the job, and make sure that I was going to have money left over for me and my business, to grow. So the spreadsheet that I put together, basically had a quote template that I built, which lists all the materials line item by line item, lists all the plants line item by line item. I put in the costs that I pay for each of those different items. I've got a profit margin attached to each of those different items, and then calculates the cost that I'm going to bill to the customer. For certain things, I have to be careful about whether sales tax is applicable or not. So I had to work that part out first. Thankfully, I found out that a lot of the stuff that I do, especially when you're putting permanent plants in the ground, is not a taxable thing for sales tax purposes here in the state of Michigan. So I tried to build all of that in order to make sure that it was pretty robust, and that it became then my model that I would use for doing all my future quotes. So I built that first back in 2023. I've made some modifications to it over time. What I did as the next level of modification was to actually put my invoice right in the same spreadsheet, so that, if this is my quote, then I could take those quantities, put it across into my invoice automatically, or adjust them. It was really important to me to be able to show the customer, here's what I quoted you, and here's what I actually did. So, for example, if I quoted 3 apple trees, but only 2 were available, I'd show them, hey, I quoted you 3, but I provided you 2, and here's the differential, so that they could see where I'd spent their money, where things had been changed, etc. So I'd give them really good transparency on all of that. It's worked for me now quite well. For the 7 or 8 customers that I've had in this part of the world, I've shared it with other installers so that they could use it, coach people in its use. I think it's really important to have some kind of tool where you can do the math quickly and easily. Probably the next thing that I'll actually do as a further modification to that is start putting in lists of the common resources that I would use and where I purchase them from, so that I've got, a base model cost for things like mulch or wood chips, or I use cattle panels a lot for, excluding the deer from around my gardens. And, so all of those things that I use very commonly is to put those into the spreadsheet with a price that I know is current, so I can adjust it there instead of doing it in 15 different spreadsheets. Each time I go back to another customer, I can link all of those things together. So ultimately what I'm going to do is build all of that in one massive big spreadsheet, so that all my customer activities are all in the same place.
Travis, did you start off with a spreadsheet as well, or?
No, I'm not a spreadsheet guy, and when I started this, I had nothing, so I had to figure it out on my own. So I started, building spreadsheets, and but then I had a little bit here, a little bit over here, and everywhere else, and then in the end, I finally came. That was what slowed me down in the very beginning, is estimates and quotes and getting everything, sourcing everything. first off, you have to be able to find it to make sure you can get it. And then everybody has different prices. So, you have to figure that out. And depending on what is in your design for your install, if you're putting up a large deer fence, you got to find the materials for that and all the pricing for that. So there's no spreadsheet for you that has all those prices for how much are screws, 2.5-inch screws, or and how much is fence staples, everything. So what I found the easy way to do for stuff like that is not plant-based, that is more materials. I go to like the Home Depot website or the Menards website, and everything I need for the job, it's like I'm shopping online, right? So I fill up a shopping cart with everything I need for that job, and all the prices and quantities are in there. And then you can save that and print that out. And then you can, take that, and then you can adjust your costs and everything there. And then, because you're not going to find any of these big box retailers that give you a wholesale price. It's just, I haven't found one yet. The only thing you can do is go to Menards and get a rebate on everything. And that could add up pretty quick. And I think at Home Depot, they give you points or something like that, for being a business. They have a point system, but you're not saving much money. So the sad thing is you can't save money, and you still have to put your margins on top of that so you can make money. And it, makes a 4x4 cost almost twice, 100% more, but it's just, it makes it more expensive. And, but that's the only drawback to materials. But plants and all that stuff you can find cheap, where you can save money on that end. But so now that I have all of my everywhere, my soil guy, my mulch, a couple different mulch companies, I know exactly what they charge. So I just have to basically figure out how much I need, and just throw it in my my invoice or my estimate, and then figure it out, and then add my labor on top, my fuel. If I have to rent a skid steer or a mini skid steer, so yeah, I just kind of, that really did slow me down. It took me 2 or 3 days sometimes in the beginning. Like when I first got your design for the Mars and Blaine, the very first install I did, I think it took me 3 or 4 days to do that, put that estimate together, because I had no idea what I was doing yet. So that is what takes so long. Now it takes me about a day to put one together, because I have all my source, everywhere I get my source resources and everything from, I know where it's coming from now. And so saves a lot of time that way.
So how do you avoid like, I'm 47, not exactly fighting fit.
You're a young guy.
but I wouldn't be that fit. So how do you price that in? The fact that it might take me 5 days now for an install, where at the end of the summer it could take me 2.
Yeah, that's a good point, Cormac. And, when I first started out, I was coming right off the back end of my chemical engineering career, where I spent a lot of time sitting behind a desk, and I certainly didn't have what I'd classify the same level of fitness as what I had when I was in college and playing a lot of sports. That's for dang sure. So, yeah, I actually estimated my hours, and, call it a fudge factor, probably 10 or 20%, of extra hours. But I made the commitment to my customer where I was only going to bill them for the actual hours that I put into the job. So I'd always overstate how many hours I thought it was going to take until I built up the experience of knowing for certain. And I had to do that as well, not just for myself, but every other person that I've brought into my work. I've had lots of folks that have, been part-time with me for, 1 or 2 days here and there. And I'd have to factor in their work without knowing what their work capability was and, their ability to do a lot of stuff. And, I'll give a great example with my daughter, Michaela. She was, helping me out when she was 17 and 18. And she's a brute. I mean, fit, works hard. And, between us and another part-time install, we put like 42 10-foot poles in the ground for the cattle panels, cemented them all in place and got it done in a day. And if I was trying to do that myself, well, I budgeted, 4, 5, 6 days just to do that work. Like I said, what I did, I tell my customers, I think it's going to take this much, but I'm going to overestimate it and overstate it, and then only charge you, what it is I actually use in terms of actual hours. And I think that's the best way really to protect yourself on the labor aspect. Another part of that is that, you might get rained out. You might be halfway through doing the work and, you get rained out for a day, so you lose some efficiency, with that. So try to factor all those circumstances in can be challenging, which is why I say that I always overstate it and then, bill for what I actually do.
So I am probably doing this like with Alex Pop with permaculture party style. So I have a shed they put up of a greenhouse. I have the sort of hedging they do, and then we're going to have a permaculture party. Then they plant the things. So for anybody who doesn't know what a permaculture party is you invite people around, the plant basically all the plants. So I'll lay the plants out where they're supposed to be planted. Then we'll have a party, music, food, and we'll plant up, and then we'll just have a social thing as well. So I'm going to give that a go, and I think that's going to ease out the labor for me. So it's a 1/4 acre site, so that's for me that would take a long time. So I chose that over. I was going to subcontract on a landscaper, but I decided against that because I want to get my hands dirty and learn. And I think with a permaculture party that balances it up.
And I have worked with Alex before, so he actually did some design work for me, and actually Graham was in on it too. He had the permaculture party. I did the design work. Well, Alex did the design, but for Food Forest Design Minnesota, and they had water issues on their land. So Graham came and helped us with the water issues. He knows what he's doing with all that stuff. So, and then we had the permaculture party at the end, and we had, trust me, you don't make as much money, obviously, because you're not doing all the work, but you can get everything done in a day. You put the word out about a party where there's going to be food. Everybody, it's like a potluck. Everybody brings a dish or something, so there's food, music. 30 people show up, so you have 30 people, and they don't show up like to be lazy. They got their rubber boots on, they got their hats in the sun, their gloves. They're like, put me to work. What do you want me to do? Just tell me what to do, and we're going to go do it. And they just absolutely love it. So it was a large tiny home community, and they had a very large community garden. So we had to, there were some swales around because they had water flooding through their garden. So we had to redirect the water around their community garden. And so we made some, what do you call it? Rock ponds or, but we filled the swales up with boulders and rocks. And then on the berms, we planted some water loving plants and trees and stuff. But this place, and a big community garden. They had a bunch of raised beds and put a pond in, pergola, a big pergola over a patio with picnic tables and stuff, and just beautiful. But everybody came out ready to work and got the job done right away. Now that is one way. And what I do for my labor when I'm going on a site, I go to Craigslist, and I can usually get if I post a job on Craigslist for labor, if I need to spread mulch or soil or pea gravel or something like that, it doesn't work out every time, but most of the time it will. So I'm going to give you both sides. So I will put a job on Craigslist. It's $5 to list a job in the gigs for labor. And I'll have 50 responses within an hour or two. So then I can kind of talk to a few people. Hey, can you make it here? And then I make sure I get a commitment from them. And then you need to send me a text at 7 a.m. and I will give you the address to the job site. Because you can't leave it to chance and give them all the information at night because then they're not going to show up the next day. I've had, and you, like Graham said, you never know what kind of worker you're going to get. So you got to kind of figure that in too. But I figure I pay about $20 an hour. You know, some people might pay 15 an hour, but I pay 20 because I'll get more work out of it. And actual $20 an hour, if I can only have them for 4 to 5 hours, that's $100 a day, $100 each. You know, so it's really not that bad for the amount of labor. You know, if I have 15, 20 yards of mulch to get spread out, you know, that's pretty good. $100 each, have 2 guys plus myself. It leads me to do the dirty work, digging holes and, you know, planting the trees while they spread the mulch, you know. But I've also had where I was an hour away from my house, out in farm country. And 3 days in a row, I had guys not show up. And I had to move 35 tons of pea gravel. So I had a mini skid steer. I should have got a full skid. It would have been done in half the time. But so we moved it all into this raised garden bed area. And then these guys were going to show up to help spread the pea gravel. We're talking about 100 foot long by 85 feet wide. And there's 24 raised garden beds. So there's going to be pea gravel in all the pathways. Well, they didn't show up. So here I am, you know, I own the business. So who's responsible for the work? It's me. So, so here I'm spreading all this gravel and, you know, I don't have small wheelbarrows. I got the 8 cubic feet wheelbarrows with 2 wheels, not one, you know, so I can get a lot more in them. But when that's filled up with pea gravel, that's a heavy wheelbarrow. But I'm a Marine, so you adapt and overcome, right? So, and do work. But when I did have some guys show up, I had one guy, he quit after 25 minutes. You know, he just 2 or 3 wheelbarrows in, he was done. I'm sorry, you know. And these are young guys, and here I'm, you know, this is 2 years ago. I'm 52 years old, and I'm just working their dick in the dirt, you know, and just making these young cats look silly, you know. But you never know what you're going to get, so you do have to figure that in. But Craigslist is a great source if you need to get some, you know, labor in a hurry. And you know, if say you get 4 guys to show up instead of the 2 that you want, well, you're going to get it done in half the time, and they're only going to be $50 a piece versus 100, you know, and then because they get it done quick, good job, give them extra $20 each, you know. Yeah. So, but that's just what I find is you figure that part out, that you're going to get a crappy worker every once in a while. Yeah. Until you have a team, that you build a team and you know exactly what you have, and they're going to show up and get the work done for you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Travis. And yeah, I mean, with all the different part-time workers that I've had, there's been probably half a dozen of them over the last 2 years. I have all their phone numbers now, right? And I know which ones are the good ones. I can give them a call. Some have moved out of the area. Some are only seasonally available. So I know their routines. I know how far they're prepared to travel. So I do a lot of jobs which can take me 3, 4, and 5 hours away from home at different times, where I got to camp out overnight at a hotel or at a campground, and get the work done in sort of 3 or 4 days. And I know who I can call. And like you, I like to reward my people well.
Mm-hmm.
If they work hard, I'm going to throw them the extra $20, $30, $40, depending on how many days or hours worth of work that is that they do, because I want them to be able to come back. And, if you treat them well, they're more likely to come back. I do have my own experience with the Permaculture Party. I actually hosted one of the first ones ever, and certainly the first one in Michigan, with Alex doing it remotely, and, with a design that was done by Maria McKenty, another great designer that I know. And so I was just basically there to get the quote put together for all the plants and all the materials. And then with that permaculture party, I literally spent all my time just supervising everybody, because they're like, okay, what do we do next? What's the thing that we need to get on top of? The host, the couple that owned the land, wonderful people, in their early 30s, lots of friends in their early 30s, so they all showed up ready to work. There was probably 25 or 30 people throughout the day that was there. And we got all the work done to plant, I think, 72 major trees and shrubs in the space of 6 hours, got all their raised bed planters done. And like you, Travis, the experience then for me was that I didn't make as much money compared to if I did all the work myself. But if I had have done all the work myself, it would have taken me 5 days or 6 days to get all that done.
Yeah.
So it was a great way to get in and out quickly, and then show also for the stewards and the customers that, hey, here's your new garden, just like that. And so I find that to be very, very effective, efficient, and fun. Another great tip I've got is try to involve the actual customers in doing the work on the property. And depending on their age, depending on their background and how much gardening they may have done before, I have lots of different experiences there. I've got at least 3 of my customers that every time I'm on site, they're out there with me. They're pushing the wheelbarrow, they're digging the holes, planting the plants. And what I find is really good when that happens is that they get to understand their own garden and how to look after it really well. So that's the other thing that I try to do, is factor in for those customers. Hey, if I'm going to be there and I'm going to be there for a day or 2 days, how much labor are you providing? So I know I'm going to be there for the right amount of time to get all the work done within that time frame.
Right.
I had that one time where I was going to have a steward help me on a design, and Graham, you did the design, and I think it was the worst client you've ever had.
Another one.
Yeah, or one of the top 2. And it wasn't so much that she wanted to help; she was taking it over, and I couldn't. It was just I can't work that way, especially when I'm being hired to do something for a steward, and I know what I'm doing, and the client doesn't. But they tried to, she tried to take the whole project over, and that's the only time I've ever had it where it has been an issue like that. But otherwise, the stewards they love to do it, but they don't get in the way by helping. Where this was kind of keeping me from getting the job done, and it never actually got off the ground because of that. And it was a pretty bad experience. That was the only one I've ever had.
Yep.
Just one. And I think Graham, you know who I'm talking about. And
I do.
But and he knew he had the same problem, and he was the designer. He's the expert, but I'm sure he got taken over on a lot of that too. But I love it when the stewards do help, but without getting in the way.
Right. So the helping, but there's that clear line of, right, there's one that's given the education, one's receiving the education.
Yes.
So it has to be made clear.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so we've got the install bit now So we've got the pricing. Going from your first job to your second job, how did that? Is there anything particularly you did marketing wise, or how did you show that what work you did? Because the client I'm working for is very happy for me to showcase the work, and they wanted to very much complicate the passive house that they have. So for me, that's not going to be a problem. They're going to actually advertise, do the marketing for me, essentially by just word of mouth and giving me the ability to take pictures and things like that. How did you do that?
Yeah, so for me, Cormac, I mean, I'm going to say the first 5 install jobs that I got here in Michigan were all given to me, by that company that we've all worked with. In any event, for me, as I've progressed with those customers, there has been some word of mouth. So for example, with my first customer, her mom right across the street, nice. She's like, "Can you come over here and do at my place what you just did at my daughter's place?" And that's really, really great opportunity for me. So absolutely, I did that. And what that does for me now is just amazing in terms of efficiency, because now that I'm in my second and third years with these folks, I can go to the daughter's place and do 3-4 hours worth of work, and then go across the street to the mom's place and do 3 or 4 hours worth of work, instead of traveling on 2 different occasions where I got like 2 hours worth of round trip to do. So, getting that word of mouth and getting local customers in the same place for me is really important. Michigan's actually quite a big state. And so, if I can travel and be efficient in that way, that's great. But then what I've done is I've built that experience. I have built a portfolio of all my installation work. It's on my website so I can show people. If I've got new customers that I'm doing design work for, I can then take that installation work and show them, here's what it could look like when it's all finished after a year or 2 years. And that's really particularly helpful now that I'm trying to, again, focus on my local business. I've been able to use, that 2 or 3 years worth of portfolio that I've developed, both in terms of design work and installation work and photos, where I can show people, hey, here's what I've done. And that's made it much easier for me with my newest and local customers that I haven't even started the install work with, but we've just been finishing up the design work for install here in spring. I picked up 2 customers in my hometown for the first time ever, all on the strength of the work that I've done for the others. The word of mouth is becoming more and more important. So those happy customers are the ones that are now referring me to the next sets of friends and aunts and uncles and that kind of stuff. So that's giving me a good base to work from. So when I started with 1 customer and then with 2 and then with 3, now I'm up to 8 or 9 or 10 that are going to occur this year. And that's without too much other than word of mouth. What we will be doing differently is actually participating in lots of different events. So I'm going to be at the Indiana Small Farms Conference coming up here on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of March. I participated in Acres USA with Lindsay and Permaculture Canada back in December. We got lots of stuff that will come from that over time. But I'm going to be attending my local's farmers market because I've got my own farm. I'm going to have my own produce to sell, and want to be able to sell designs at the same time as I'm selling tomatoes and peppers and raspberries. We have a thing here called First Fridays in Adrian, Michigan, where the whole town gets shut down and there's all kinds of vendors and booths and food and music and all the rest of it. And that's on the first Friday every month. And we're going to be setting up a booth there, myself and Julia, so that we can show design work and show what we're doing in the local community, invite people to come for tours to my farm, hosting events here at my place as well. Now that I've got the capability of doing that, all of those different things add up to more people having an interest in permaculture, having more interest in what they want to grow, where they want to source their food. And then ultimately that turns into more business opportunities for me.
Yeah, you touched on something there, Graham, maintenance. So as well as the install, do you price and maintenance at the start?
I don't. I actually just tell people, hey, if you want me to help you with ongoing maintenance, I provide them with a new quote at the start of the next season for all that work based on what things we agree upon. So as you can imagine, when somebody takes on maybe a quarter acre or half acre or acre design from an install perspective, sometimes they don't have the budget to do it all at once. And so I've got that work spread out over 2, 3, and 4 years with some folks already. I've got a new one coming up, which is a whole acre of design work that Lindsay's doing for me with the customer here in town. And their budget means that they're probably not going to be able to do but maybe $5,000 to $8,000 worth of work every year on what could be a $100,000 project. And so for that reason, I actually then go back to each of those customers every year to say, okay, what would you like to do this year so that we can do it in a manageable chunk? And then I'm also not fixed into costs that might have been a year or 2 years old in terms of tree prices and materials and all the rest of it. And I've seen a dramatic shift in the cost of plants in the 3 years that I've been an installer. You know, if I'm buying stuff from nurseries, especially, I mean, even bare root trees, I've seen go from $30 to $50 to $70 to $100 in certain circumstances. And so I don't want to lock myself into that by trying to quote all that at one time and holding myself to it. In terms of the maintenance work, most of the maintenance work that I'm doing, believe it or not, is stuff that, you know, they could hire somebody else to do, but it's within the scope of the permaculture project that I've been working on, and they want me to take care of it. So it's mowing their lawns, it's trimming the edges, it's taking all of the fall leaves and raking them up and composting them, weeding the gardens. You know, my wife loves to weed, and so she came with me on a job for a day at my very first customer location where we're all really good friends. And she sat there and she weeded all the gardens for me. And it's just, you know, while I was building a gazebo. You know, so it's great to be able to do those things. I find it really, really beneficial for me personally just to have that ongoing relationship with these folks. So, you know, that lady that's up in Pinckney and her mom, you know, they're friends of the family. They're like family to me now. So I really like going back to those folks every single year. That's how I can grow my business, you know, where I can count on a certain amount of revenue every year because I know I can go to those places for so many days every month between April and November and count on so many hours. And they've told me I can do that.
Great stuff. Travis, back to the question. How did you go from your first to your second customer?
Well, like, Graham said, some of them might not have a budget to do it all at once, but I didn't have that problem. They had the budget, but we ran up against fall.
Yeah.
So the ground freezes in the fall. So basically what I would do, I would get all the perennials in the ground before the snow flies. Because you can plant a dormant tree, no problems. You know, sometimes it's the best time to plant your trees is in the fall.
Yes.
And, you know, it's no rocket science to it. You know, you're putting a tree that's sleeping right now in the ground, you know, and it's a lot less worry about anything. Well, and then I come back in the spring and do the other half. So, you know, I've had quite a few of those. And now, like, I have 5 of those I'm going to be going back to in the spring that I started last fall or last summer. And now I'll be doing the other half. You know, I did all the perennials for a job in Wisconsin. You know, I think I put 80 trees in the ground as a windbreak around the entire outside of the property. And now I'm going to go back and I'm putting in a $20,000 food forest that's going to be surrounded by a deer fence. And then and build an herb spiral. But going from one to the other, I was counting on installations from a certain company that never materialized because it just didn't happen. So I had to start doing my own marketing or more of my own marketing. I was already doing it, but now I had to really rely on myself because I couldn't rely on getting any installs from this company. So I film everything. And so I have a YouTube channel now. It has close to 400 videos on it. So I just went over 1,000 subscribers last week. And now I'm trying to get up to 4,000 hours of watch time so I can get monetized on my channel. So then I can start making money off my YouTube channel. But that YouTube channel is a gold mine because I have been out on jobs putting trees in the ground and my phone rings. And somebody's on the other end saying, I'm watching one of your videos right now. And can you do that in my backyard too? And I'm like, yes, I can, and she goes, well, I just bought this house. We're moving in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it was. And I've always wanted a food forest. So can you design my backyard for me before I move in? And then, sure. So I had a deal done in 2 minutes right on the phone without even have to actually sell it. They called me right off a YouTube video, and I've had that quite a few times now. And there's another site called Nextdoor.com. It's funny because it's a website where people just complain about everything, but I've actually had people call me to design their yards. I just had one today, because I always put, hey, springtime's coming, but winter is the best time to design your property, design your yard so you can ready to go in the spring. And I go, just imagine walking out your back door, being able to pick apples and, peaches, plums, all that stuff. And just a simple little post like that. And, I get 3 or 4 messages every single time I post that stuff. So that I've gotten jobs off of the Nextdoor site. I'm getting jobs a few off of Facebook, but that YouTube channel is a gold mine, like I say, because people go on there, they're researching. I come up in Minnesota. I own all the search listings in Minnesota. I used to own all the search listings for food forest abundance all over the country too. Because that's my background is web development, web design since 1998, and search engine optimization. So I know how to be found. So my website also, I have a contact form on there with a questionnaire, and everything is a nice funnel that comes up with sales, and I do get some word of mouth, but those are my main ones. And of course, every steward, I become friends with them. They're all great people. It's amazing how you become friends with these people that you do these installs for, because they're so amazed, about what you're doing, but also what it's going to be like in the future when they can just walk out their back door and feed their family, and they had young grandkids. So all these grandkids are going to be, in their backyard all the time. And I talk about different things like a greenhouse or a pond, and then they'll sit there and they're like, wow, yeah, I could see a greenhouse in my yard, or I could see a pond there. So you plant those seeds, and you always have, and the maintenance part, like Graham was saying, you're always going to be interacting with them in some way. And everybody likes to talk about their themselves and what they have, And when people have a food forest in their backyard and they can feed their family and everybody, they love to talk about it. And then, well, who did it for you? And then you get a phone call or an email. So-and-so gave me your name. Is that all right if I call you, whatever. So that's been my experience so far. And
So
yeah.
on the YouTube thing then, so I have a YouTube channel, the podcast, and then I have the Vine Permaculture YouTube. I have my own YouTube. My new company is called Vine Permaculture Ireland because the SEO. Because when I searched up, I thought, well, the Vine Permaculture's here anyway. So should I start a new channel showing these installs, or should I put it on the Vine Permaculture one?
You just leave it on there because you can SEO your titles and your descriptions and your keywords and your hashtags in each video. So, let's say you're planting fruit trees or fruit tree guilds. Put planting apple tree guilds today in whatever city you're in, whatever town you're in. Put those in the titles. And then if you can fit it, put Vine Permaculture at the end. So it's little things like that. You put the city you're working in, the keyword, what you're doing, And if you can fit the name of your business in the end of it, because you get 100 characters for a YouTube title. And then also get on ChatGPT and have it create titles. It will create 4 or 5 different titles for you to choose from. You know, just say, and you can ask ChatGPT, say, hey, you are a YouTube expert. And now I want you to create some headlines for me. I'm planting fruit tree guilds in whatever city you're in, and it will give you keyword loaded titles, you know, for that. And then say, I need a description too. So it might have 5 different descriptions, all with your keywords in it, and to choose from. And then you can take those and you can kind of mishmash them together, and it'll give you all the keywords you need for your videos and hashtags, and in about 10 seconds, you know.
That's
And,
great. I'll definitely do that.
and it
I think,
saves you a ton of time, you know.
yeah, I have my SEO is probably not the best at the minute. I have a quick question for Graham here before we wrap up, and then with the last question. Graham, you mentioned you travelled and camped over. So one end of Ireland, the other is like 6 or 7 hours the max. I could do this the whole of Ireland then, and just camp. Would 6 or 7 hours be within both your ranges?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I've actually looked at how far can I travel, and now that I don't have a day job per se, where I have to be in a certain location, I've started to open up like how far would I be prepared to travel. So far, I've done work within 4 or 5 hours of home. Well, that gives me like a really big section of the Midwest that I could cover from Cleveland to Chicago, from east to west, all the way up into the upper peninsula of Michigan and down into Ohio and Indiana. And, so we'll call it a 300-mile radius. How far could I travel, within that time frame? It's really just managing the costs associated with the accommodation, the meals that you've got to, look after while you're traveling. But the bigger consideration for me has been, how do I get all my stuff to go with me? And so, I've got a landscaping trailer. I built a cabin over the top of it, put all my stuff in so I could lock it up and leave it safely in a hotel lot or parking lot of a camping ground, etc. So that was the bigger consideration for me, was making sure I could effectively take all my tools with me and make sure that I wouldn't forget anything that I'd need to take with me. Each job being a little bit different, the list of tools can change. And so I worked out then what's a good kit that I could take with me so that I wouldn't have to be spending time buying a rake or a shovel or something like that because I forgot the dang thing. And believe it or not, I mean, that first experience of traveling away and being 3 nights away from home, yes, I forgot the rake. And so I had to go to the hardware store, buy a rake, come
That must have killed you.
It did. I mean, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm spreading mulch and I don't have a rake with me. So it's like, that experience was positive from a learning perspective. But now that I've gone through that, it's like, okay, how far do I want to travel?
I think one time you were chatting about buying like a camper van and a trailer and
absolutely
doing Florida and everything.
I've got an old van, which it's got fold down seats in it that I could sleep in it. Got to get it refurbished, and up to snuff for travel before I do that. I've got my pickup truck, which allows me to travel fairly good distances and haul a good amount of freight. Both of those vehicles have got a trailer hitch on them, so I could haul stuff if I wanted to. And I've actually thought about driving all the way out to California to do work because we've got some opportunities that could come up out there. Love to go to Florida anytime I can, especially in the wintertime. And so that's what I'm really looking at now is like, how can I make my business something that survives beyond winter in the Midwest, so that I can do work elsewhere where the climates are warmer. So that would be Florida, Texas, California, the Southwest, etc. I'm not there yet, but I'd say within the next year or so, those will be on my horizon for sure.
Class. What about you, Travis?
Yeah, I same thing. But when I don't have my big truck died on me, my big Ford Expedition died, so now I don't have that. So now what I do I rent vehicles right now, and then I rent a trailer, but for my tree deliveries, I rent a U-Haul, and then I'll go drive. I'll take an entire day to go to all my different places to go get my trees and plants, and I'll fill up an entire U-Haul, bring it to my job site, bring the U-Haul back. Then I'm done with that. But also, I can rent a U-Haul. I had some jobs in Wisconsin 4 hours away. So, I find a hotel in the area and I rented a U-Haul and everything I needed fit in the back of the U-Haul, and I had a trailer for, all the trees inside the U-Haul and all the tools on the trailer, So I had everything I needed, and then I found the internet. You can find everything. So I found a skid steer that was waiting for me at a job site. So everything you can rent, earth moving equipment, whatever you need. So, and I have 40-volt earth augers, so I don't have to dig holes. I drill holes. And that has been the best investment I made. $150 for an auger. That was half off. And I probably drilled a couple thousand holes with the thing. So it's actually paid for itself in one job. But now I see, when I went down to Austin, Texas, to Del Bigtree's studio to do one of the very first installs for Food Forest Abundance, I didn't know anybody in Texas. I didn't know anybody except Jim. All right. So, and Del Bigtree, we had to get a job done. What did I do? I got on my laptop, got on Craigslist, and I found labor, and then found trees, found a soil guy within the area, because, we had to get it. So we arrived on a Sunday morning, started, and then by Monday, we had everything just about ready to go and got everything, the soil delivered, the mulch delivered. And we used a lot of the stuff that was on the land. There was a bunch of old limestone bricks. So I built an herb spiral with them. And then there was a bunch of tree branches. It was a 5-acre property that had big piles of tree branches all over. And I'm like, well, how about we just go rent a wood chipper? So we got a U-Haul, put a wood chipper, drove it back up, and we chipped all that brush right into the food forest we were designing. So we saved on half the mulch there. But I know I can go anywhere in the country and I can find the stuff I need. I'll source the plants if I had a little time ahead of time, but I can always find labor on Facebook Craigslist. So I'm comfortable, and like Graham, I'm looking forward to going different places. And especially now that I'm starting Food Forest Design Network, I'm going to have a lot more opportunities to leave Minnesota and go everywhere. Right now I'm trying to get new vehicles and new trailers so I can but getting my own skid steer and my own mini skid steer. So I have that stuff. But until you get to that point, find a good rental place near you or wherever you're going to be doing the job at. And they will deliver it for you, drop it off. Make sure you have a hose so you can spray it off. Otherwise, you're going to pay the clean fee if you don't have the hose, because they get really dirty when you're doing this work, especially if it rains. Rent all the equipment you need until you can afford to get your own.
Yeah.
And find a hotel. You go on booking.com or priceline.com and you can find hotel rooms for under $100 a night, so.
Yeah, I'm hoping I have an already estate. I'm just hoping to sleep in the back end.
That's great too. If I had the vehicle to do that, I'd sleep in that. My Ford Expedition was the extended version. I could put a king size bed in the back of that thing. So yeah, it would have been nice.
Yeah, I've looked at the same thing. I've got a pop-up tent that goes on the back of my pickup truck now, so it'll collapse down and go on the back seat, blow up mattress and whatever. So, I think, for some of the jobs, if I need to go further, then I can cut that cost of accommodation down dramatically.
Mhm.
I have to eat anyway, I'm told. So it's like I'll go to the grocery stores and buy stuff just if I'm buying the groceries, here at home. So
a dozen eggs and a loaf of bread.
Indeed.
Yeah, right.
Bacon and eggs never goes bad for breakfast.
No, never. And every hotel you go to, they have breakfast for you.
Yep, true
so
enough.
you save there too, and then you can go. They have their little refrigerators with the yogurts and the cereals. You can kind of sneak those into your room so you have extra.
Guys, thank you very much. And one last quick question. One piece of advice you could give yourself from your first job after all the jobs you've done so far?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, the first one would be do better research on where to buy all the plants. No doubt in my mind. That's the first thing. The sad part about this, and I mean, I love plants, right? When I go through and I do my quotes, it's labor is always the biggest part of the cost from a percentage standpoint. Other materials second, planters, wood, paving stones, all that kind of stuff, mulch. And then plants is last. And usually it works out like the labor is close to 50%, the materials 30%, and plants are 20%. So I'd like to see more plants, but to get that to be cost effective, it's knowing where to get them well. So that's the advice that I would give to future me if I was looking to do it all over.
I agree with everything Graham said. And one thing I would also, the most important thing is trust the people you work with.
Yeah.
Make sure you work with people that you can trust, and you all have the same mission.
Absolutely.
That makes the job go much easier, and you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
That's great. Travis, do you want to tell us about your future plans for helping installers?
Yeah, and it's actually getting ready to pre-launch, and I'll be talking to you, Graham, here in a bit. But I'm actually trying to scale Food Forest Design Minnesota right now. I got a business plan together, trying to get all my equipment so I could scale that. But I just am ready to launch the Food Forest Design Network. And if anyone knew what Food Forest Abundance was, we had co-ops all over the country and designers everywhere. This is what Food Forest Abundance was supposed to be. And I built Food Forest Abundance in the beginning, and it never came to fruition from what I started. So I took everything, the website, everything, and I redesigned everything. And now I have a system in place to take anyone who wants to be a Food Forest designer or installer and turn them into a Food Forest designer and installer, and do the sales and the marketing for them so they can be out doing what they want to do, installing, making money. So I have an entire directory system set up for designers and installers. So if someone comes to the directory, they can find somebody in their area and that can do the work for them. And we also handle the sales and marketing for everybody who comes into the network. So we have social media plans and marketing plans set up. So if someone comes in from a little town in Texas, well, we're going to do a marketing blitz in their area so we can send jobs to them, and we handle all the design work, and then we hand the install jobs to them. But we also encourage people that are designers and installers already to allow us to do all the sales and marketing for them, and then we hand off the designs and the installs to them. And one thing we don't do is take money from them if they go get their own business. They go out and get their own installs and designs. We're not asking them, hey, you got to give me a part of that. You know, you do the sales and marketing on your own to get your own jobs. You deserve every penny of that, you know. But we have a system in place to train everybody. Like I didn't know how to do installs. I didn't know how to, you know, I had to learn how to register my business. That's in there. Okay. Getting a EIN number, sourcing materials, doing estimates, you know, foundational knowledge of permaculture, and, you know, how to build a fruit tree guild. Everything you need to know is in there. And then we're going to have guests like Graham come in, you know, and do webinars and help people that have questions and have group webinars. And this is basically built for permaculture designers and installers by permaculture designer and installer and a U.S. Marine. All right. And my partner in Massachusetts is also Marine. And I know I can trust a Marine, you know, and he has been involved in permaculture, but he is he's been in solar sales for 15 years. The guy is an amazing salesperson. So this whole system is everything that I envisioned 5 years ago that never came to fruition. And now it can. And it's going to be amazing.
Awesome. I love to hear it, Travis. That's great news because, you know, one of the challenges, Cormac, when you're on your own, in your own business, is how many hats you got to wear. And being able to set aside, you know, the right amount of time on each of these different activities, whether it's invoicing, whether it's quoting, whether it's sales and marketing, whether it's content creation, whether it's design work, whether it's install work, whether it's, you know, booking your travel and all the rest of the stuff that goes with running a business. Some of those activities would be great for me to get rid of, you know, so I can focus on the things that actually generate the most money, or so I can get rid of the things where, you know, frankly, I suck at doing them, you know, because I'm not good or comfortable with search engine optimization or building a website or creating content, you know, that promotes my business. So, Travis, I think that's going to be a great service that you can offer to a lot of folks.
Yeah, and when you're outside working, how are you going to market your business?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you can't do it at the same time. And
exactly.
I'm a victim of that too. I wear every single hat, plus the website and the social media and all that, you know. And luckily, I have that background. I have 25 years experience in web development, web design, and so, you know, search engine optimization. So that is what is behind this network, is 25 years of experience building this thing, and then all the sales and marketing parts into it. And it's an all-in-one, done for you business.
Awesome.
So you know, you come in, you pay to be part of the network. All the co-ops that were part of the other company that didn't get anything for the money they paid, they're going to be free members. They're going to be joining this network for free.
Awesome.
And we're going to get them the training they need and let them do what they love, you know. And all in one business, done for you. And so you can concentrate on installs.
And for likes of me in Ireland, is this just US based, or can you be anywhere in the world?
You too, you know. Plus you can do you did virtual designs already. You already know how to do those. So if you get into a position where you're a little slow, we got designs for you, you know. So designers are not paying anything to be part of this network, because designers are the backbone of this business. If there's no designers, can't design anywhere, you know. So, you know, all the sales and marketing, we do all the sales of the designs, and then pay the designers to do the work. And then if you're a designer and installer, you get the install too. So, you know, and or else we pass it on to an install team wherever they are.
Excellent.
That's great. I think there's a podcast on that in itself.
Indeed.
So I'll get these all back on. Guys, any final thoughts now? before we go here? Or,
No,
anything
I just want to say thanks, Cormac. It's always fun to be on your podcast. I think I'm up to like 6 or 7 with you now. And Travis, I think this is our first one together. So good to see you again. I obviously enjoy and have enjoyed working with both of you for, quite a number of years now. Travis, you gave me design work in Minnesota to do, which, literally fed my family for an entire winter. So I've always got a willingness to support you in what you're doing, and take my hat off to you now for what you're about to do next.
Thank you. And you're going to be part of it. So, you helped me out so much, and and I don't know, it's, I'm looking forward to the next year, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. It's going to be amazing. And grow food, not lawns, people.
Amen.
On that note, thanks very much, Travis. We're always here to support you. Help. You going to say something there?
Yeah. And this, this is second time with you, also. But I've been on 25 podcasts in the past month and a half. So that is another way to generate eyes on your business too. If you get a chance, get on as many as you can. And
absolutely. I got 3 new consultations out of one podcast last week. Yeah. So that's a great way to bring new traffic to you for sure.
Great. Guys, thank you very much. And for those listening, I hope to get some resource out of this, maybe a PDF or something that we can attach, and we'll get you a sign up link. So if you go to vinepermaculture.com, you sign up for the newsletter over there, and we'll add any resources as well from Graham and Travis in the video description. And that's been the Permaculture Vine Podcast 88. We're closing in on 100 very fast.
Awesome. Great work, Cormac.
And I think, Graham, you're definitely you're up there. I think you're the number 1 guest so far. Numbers.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, guys, and thanks to everyone for listening. We'll chat to you soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.